What if there's a diet that promises a longer and healthier life? Would you do it? Because I definitely would.
When I first heard about the Blue Zone diet, known for regions where people live longer and healthier lives,
I thought, I want that. I want to live long and live well, but
what about our gains?
can we actually build muscle or at the very least maintain muscle on a Blue Zone diet? As someone who is committed to their fitness goals, I know how important protein is to building and maintaining muscle.
The diet is completely plant-based.
How are we going to get enough protein?
So I'm making it my mission to find out. This week, I'm going to follow the Blue Zone diet to see if it supports an active lifestyle.
Looking really good. I'll be sharing what I learned, how I feel, and whether we can make massive gains on this diet.
First things first, I needed a complete overhaul of my fridge. I mentioned earlier that the Blue Zone diet emphasizes a mostly plant-based approach. And I'm a meat eater. And in full disclosure, I love it and I really enjoy
But
it.
I'm open to exploring because I have no doubt that there's a lot that we could learn from the longest living people. And I honestly think this is a great introduction to the plant-based life because while they don't recommend having any meat, occasional small portions of red meat and fish are allowed. So I really do like that flexibility. But I'm doing this right. I am doing the full Blue Zone diet. Let's do this.
I started by choosing the highest protein recipes I could find. I was worried because at first glance, it didn't seem like these would provide me with enough protein to support my fitness goals. But I was willing to give it a shot.
So we just ran into a problem. I don't have a steamer to steam our sweet potatoes. Hopefully this fine mesh strainer is going to work. Okay, so it does seem like it's working. So mission accomplished.
Before I show you my first attempt at Okinawan dishes, let's talk about why protein is such a priority.
Living a long life is great, but living a long, healthy, and active life, that's even better. To achieve this, building and preserving lean muscle right now and as we age is just so important. And there's a recipe to this. It's all about giving our muscles the right signals. We're physically working them and we're supporting our body with enough protein to recover and adapt. And here's the best part. When we're working on those signals, we're not just aiming for longevity. We're also gonna look really good. Fit. Here's to day one.
Bryce, I'm serious. I might be able to do plant-based with this.
Do you agree that this is one of my best creations?
Oh yeah.
So good.
Even after adding generous portions of tofu, I reached only 73 grams of protein by the end of the day.
But like I said earlier, I'm not looking for an amount of protein to just live. I want to thrive. I aim between 2 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight to really fuel that muscle growth. And here's what I'm factoring in. First up, what's your goal? If you're looking to change your body composition and build muscle, you'll want to aim towards that higher end range. The more muscle you're trying to build, the more protein you'll likely need to support that growth. Next, how active are you? If you're hitting the gym, doing resistance training, or any physical activity for that matter, your muscles are constantly being broken down and repaired. Think of it like reinforcing a structure. Every time you work out, your muscles need more material, in this case protein, to rebuild stronger. And finally, how old are you? As we age, starting as early as our 30s, something called anabolic resistance kicks in, meaning our bodies don't build muscle as easily as we used to. So the older we get, we actually need more protein to get the same muscle building benefits that was easier when we were younger. So for someone like me, I'm in my 30s, weighing about 50 kilograms and strength training regularly, that means I'm aiming for about 100 to 110 grams of protein daily. So 73 grams of protein is good, but it isn't the best to support my goals. But I will say this, I feel good, I feel light, refreshed, not just heavy and oily, if that's making any sense. Maybe this is one reason why the Blue Zone is linked to people reaching age 100 at 10 times greater rate than in the United States, which is pretty crazy to me.
After having more tofu in one day than I've ever had my entire life, I was excited to try new dishes inspired from Ikaria, Greece, known for low middle-age mortality and dementia rates. Protein needs are largely met through legumes, nuts, and seeds.
We are going to make some hummus for breakfast.
Okay, it says 1/2 cup extra virgin olive oil. That is a lot of oil.
I think to start, we're just gonna do a 1/4 instead. I'm gonna put some parsley.
This is hard work. I mean, I would have never known that it's just almost completely beans. Even with generous portions, I still fell short of my protein target, even lower than yesterday.
Now here's the thing, not all proteins are absorbed by our body the same way. With animal proteins, we absorb almost all of it, but with plant proteins, it's a different story. It is reasonable to think that our body is going to use all 20 grams. But that's not exactly how it works because of fiber and certain compounds in plants made for plants, not humans, that can affect how we absorb the nutrients. So the amount our body can actually use is lower, about 65 to 85%. So instead of the full 20 grams, I'm really getting closer to 13 to 17 grams. It's a lot to take in and can get really complicated. But the point is this, it's not about how much protein we eat. It's about how much our body can absorb and use. If you're eating a mostly plant-based diet, you're not absorbing all of it. And that's actually another reason to aim for the higher protein intake to account for that lower absorption.
At this point, I was starting to doubt if I could make the Blue Zone diet work for my goals. But I wasn't giving up yet. So I took it up a notch and spent time tracking my meals to make it work.
I just needed to know if this diet could truly support my health and fitness goals.
After spending 2.5 hours planning and adjusting recipes, I was finally able to reach 110 grams of protein in, but it came at a cost of having over 2,800 calories. Way beyond my target. At this point, I was starting to feel convinced that building muscle on a Blue Zone diet is just too challenging. I just don't think I can easily get it from lentils, tofu, beans, quinoa, and I've spent more time planning my meals than I've ever had in my entire fitness journey.
And that is something very huge for me. I have always made it a point to make my meals simple, quick, and delicious. And so this is more consuming than I would prefer my daily nutrition and diet to be.
Yeah, I don't know.
The following days, I adapted the modified version of the Blue Zone diet, which allows eggs no more than 3 times per week, fewer than 3 ounces of fish 3 times weekly, and fewer than 2 ounces of meat 5 times per month.
I have at least twice the amount of this little piece in a meal. So this is definitely an adjustment, but at this point, any animal protein is going to help.
I was really excited because all the Blue Zone recipes are so delicious, but they're just lacking that protein boost.
Precious, very precious meat.
So this was the perfect opportunity. I had to be very selective in choosing lean types of fish and cuts of meat to bring my protein up while keeping my calories reasonable.
And please do not crack your egg this way. I actually made something easy difficult.
And it was very messy. Even with addition of some animal sources, I was still getting the bulk of my protein from tofu and all kinds of beans. And what was so frustrating is that beans are not easy to prepare. You have to soak them for at least 8 hours, that I ended up buying canned beans to make the cooking process quick. But even with the modified version of the Blue Zone diet, I still struggled to lower my calorie intake. And this can be tricky, especially if you're aiming for weight loss or maintaining a specific physique.
We might think we're eating plant-based, it's healthy, I can eat as much as I want. But aiming for higher protein on a Blue Zone diet, it's really easy to be in a caloric surplus because many of the best plant-based protein sources, they come packed with carbs and fat. So while it's healthy, eating too many calories, even from healthy food sources, will lead to weight gain. When it comes to building muscle, yes, you want to be in a caloric surplus because that will help with that goal a lot. But with the Blue Zone diet, that surplus is mostly coming from carbs and fats. This past week, my meals were hitting as much as 4:1 carbs to protein ratio, which means I'm eating 800 to 1,500 calories just from carbs daily. Now, we can still gain some muscle on a lower protein intake when we're on a surplus, but muscle protein synthesis just won't be at its peak. This means our gains won't likely be as strong as they could be if we were eating that optimal amount of protein intake. While this diet can be great for longevity and health, it's not exactly the easiest for muscle building. It's tough, especially if you're active, over 30, or have aesthetic goals. I'm not saying that you can't build muscle on a Blue Zone diet. It's definitely possible, but it will require a lot of planning and spending time to actually learn about food. Without that, you just risk not getting enough protein, not just for physique changes, but for your actual health. If you're open to some level of flexibility, the modified version where you include some animal-based protein can better support muscle building. If not, then you also can consider adding some plant-based protein powders, and while that's more processed than how a Blue Zone diet prefers, it can help increase your overall protein intake while keeping calories in check. But if you want to maximize your diet even more, maximize your life, pairing it with resistance training is key. This combination is so powerful for muscle building and living a longer and healthier life.